so that you can take notes. And I do have a couple of handouts also, so Gara has that and she can send that over if you'd like to have that as well. I started real estate about 4 years ago. My name is Karen Hillman. I am the CEO and realtor for Her Group Living. So we're a new expansion team, we're new to our brokerage, but Hergen Rother Real Estate Group is out of Vermont, so that's where we're from. I started real estate not with Keller Williams, another company, and we did training like this. And one of the things that I walked away with without is some practical stuff like scripts and step by step and that sort of thing. So I tried to print out and provide, and we'll talk a little bit about that stuff, so that if you're new to real estate, or maybe you're a buyer's agent and you're ready to jump into listings, or maybe you're an experienced listing agent and you're just looking to hear how somebody else does their work. I'm hoping that what we've prepared for you, and thanks to Casey Crawford, who put this PowerPoint presentation together for us, we put together a pretty comprehensive, I think, coverage of it. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we begin, I want to just kind of set the expectation. If you look at what we're going to go through here, and of course I can't move it down. How do I do that? Okay, there we go. So we're going to talk about how to have a conversation, how to get a listing, and how to take it all the way through to the close. So with only 1 hour, again, we're going to crash course this. So how to find sellers, that's the first part, the very first part. You got to have a seller to have a listing, right? So there's several different ways to do that. And on your paper, you'll see, and up here on the board, you'll see SOI. What's SOI? Sphere of influence, exactly. So you're going to be reaching out to everybody and tell them you're looking for listings. If you don't ask for it, they're not going to knock on your door, usually. Once people get to know you, then they start knocking on your door. What's the range of experience we have with your real estate license and listing? So how many, has anybody closed a listing yet? Okay, great. So we have.
We're close.
Okay. So you're in pending right now.
Yeah.
Claire's in pending. Bethany's closed a listing. Kathy just got a listing. Nick, you're hoping to get a listing soon, and you will. Okay, great. So social media. Social media is a great way to let your sphere of influence know that you are a real estate agent looking for listings. So there's all kinds of stuff that Keller Williams provides. KW Living supplies to you also, templates that have already been created to let people know on social media something about listing your house, just giving them like questions, ways to engage, and so forth. So use your social media to increase your sphere of influence, but also to communicate with your sphere of influence. Open houses are a great way to find sellers. Do you know what I mean by that? You could do an open house. You don't have to have a listing to do an open house. You could post on our KW agent page, our KW Living agent page, that you're available this weekend and would love to do an open house for somebody. I do it all the time. In fact, Tal Tamir had put something out last weekend and said he wanted to do an open house, and we, I said, we'll do it. I'll do it. That's all you have to do. Let people know, and you don't have to wait till they tell you either. Create a relationship with your fellow real estate agents. Find open houses that you can do. You will find buyers there that come unrepresented. And typically a buyer has a house to sell. Now, right now, there's a lot of first home buyers coming out of the market, but you may end up, even if you're a buyer's agent, you may end up with a selling opportunity here. So open houses are a great way. Facebook ads. You'll learn through Command, if you haven't already, that you can use Facebook ads through Keller Williams at a discounted rate. So you get a discounted rate to create an ad in a specific geographic area to let people know that you're looking for listings. FSBOs and expireds. We're not seeing a whole lot of expireds because everything's selling pretty fast, but there are some FSBOs out there. So there are scripts available, and they are available through Command or Connect in the Resources tab. Some scripts that you can use to call on for sale by owner and expireds. My favorite for sale by owner approach is simply just to if you have a telephone number on the sign, usually, if they're smart enough to put their telephone number on the sign, call them up and tell them, we have buyers. We have lots of buyers that can't find houses. Is it okay if I come and preview your home? Come and preview your home, because then I'll know what to tell a buyer and I may be able to find. And while you're there, you're developing a relationship with them and you're talking about the process. I even bring a blank residential property disclosure form with me. So there are opportunities for you to help somebody in the for sale by owner process. And as soon as you let them know that most of the time for sale by owner people end up listing with an agent anyway, because they've either overpriced or they've underpriced. So if they've underpriced, it's a very good possibility that your fees would be covered just by presenting your expertise in a property valuation, right? A home valuation. Expireds, by the way, I will touch on that. You will know if you watch the MLS when a property expires, because there is a tab and there's an end date. So when they become available, you can look right in there. You can click on expireds and see when they have. And then you, at the top of the column, click the top of the expired column, the date, and you can put the most recent at the top. Okay, and mail outs, mailers. So just mailing postcards or letters. Very often, if you own a home right now, you probably got a letter in your mailbox that says, do you want to sell your house? Because we're just looking for every opportunity that we can. Okay. There's a couple other things I wanted to go over before I continue about how to find sellers that I added. I think that everywhere you go, listen to what people are talking about, because people are talking about real estate, right? Everybody's talking about real estate. So listen for opportunities to give someone your card. Listen for opportunities to say, hey, I happen to be a real estate agent. If you're not working with somebody, I'd love to help. Very, very easy to just come from a place of contribution and offer to help, even if it's just a question. I can help you with that. If you want a home valuation from a real estate perspective, we're trained to look at them just like the appraisers are, so we can give you a pretty good idea what your home is worth. So listen for opportunities. Circle prospecting. We were talking about open houses just a minute ago. So if you're doing an open house for somebody coming up, maybe you can find out all the addresses in the neighborhood. Maybe you can walk around and knock on doors and say, I'm going to have an open house down the street. And a really, really great way to sell a home is to tell your neighbors about it, because they probably want to pick who their neighbor's going to be, right? They have somebody that said, I love your neighborhood. Let me know when something comes available. Or maybe they're thinking about selling their house. I think that the best time to reach out to a neighborhood is when something in the neighborhood sells, because then everybody wants to sell, right? You can, if you've been watching a property in a neighborhood that you want to market and it closes, you could be the first one to call up those neighbors and say, guess what it sold for? Because you have access to that as soon as it transfers, right? You have access to that information. The house down the street from you or around the corner from you was 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and it sold for $230,000. Usually when houses in the neighborhood sell like that, other people are looking to, thinking about selling their home. How about, is that you? Are you thinking about selling your home, or would you like to have a home valuation? Because we have buyers that didn't get it and they're looking for this neighborhood. Okay, so that's kind of circle prospecting. Circle prospecting is reaching out to a specific area for a specific reason and offering your help. Give a presentation somewhere. Maybe at church, maybe you're in a women's group, maybe you're in a toddler group, maybe you're in a networking group. Give a presentation somewhere. Remember, you're the expert. You have a real estate license, so you can speak to real estate and selling a home more than the seller, plus they have a real estate license, but you are the expert, so always lead with that. And then the other thing I have is ask for referrals. So if you have children and they play ball or they dance, get to know the parents. Ask for referrals. Hey, do you know anybody that's looking to buy a home sell a home or invest in real estate? I'd love to talk to them. Would you mind if I gave them a call? That's super important because they say, oh yeah, I'm gonna have them call you. They don't usually call. You gotta ask them, would it be okay with you if I gave them a call? Can I have their name and number and I'll give them a call? I'll tell them that you mentioned that you thought they might be interested in speaking with me. So ask for referrals to find your listings. Okay, so that handout, Keisha, I've got some handouts here.
I was just reserving, but I'm sure I'll take one.
Yeah.
I'll get it.
The second one says just sold script. This is another way to find a seller. I'll let you just look at that in your own time, but if you have telephone numbers or even if you're just having a conversation, this is a really nice script to use. It's the second sheet behind your seller boot camp. So, hi, my name is Karen. I'm with Keller Williams, and a house sold on your street, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths for X number of dollars. We know when someone sells a home, usually 2 or more sell it right away. So I was wondering, of the people that you know the best, who do you think will most likely be most likely to move next? Would you be willing to give me their name and number? Everything we just talked about. So there is a script for you to use, and remember when these scripts are written, these are experts that write these scripts. So if you're new at this, use the script pretty close because the words that they choose and the order of the words they choose are important. They help you get through it. And then once you find some success and some comfort level with the script, then you can start to modify it a little bit to fit your need. But I would encourage you to stick with that. Okay, so now we've got a seller, and we've got somebody that may want to sell. So the first thing we have to do is get the appointment. We use a pre-listing package. Some agents use a pre-listing package that they send out. And some people either mail it out ahead of time, and that would include the things that they have to complete. Information about their house, right? The residential property disclosure, and maybe the lead-based paint disclosure if the house was built before 1979. So you want to go ahead and send those out ahead of time. Other real estate agents have a 2-appointment listing approach. So the first time they go out and talk to the seller or the potential listing, then they're going to bring those papers with them and explain how they are to fill them out and get information about the house. So you're going to walk through the house, right? You're going to ask about the seller. You're going to ask them a bunch of questions. Why are you moving? And that's the next handout that I gave you, is pre-qualifying for the listing presentation. So that you know, you can do this on the phone, these questions, but find out the answers to these questions. Why are you moving? When do you want to move? Do you have to be out by a certain date? If somebody's in a rental situation or they've accepted a new job, there's a date that they need to leave by. Where will you go? That's a really good question. Where are you going to go? Because if they're moving out of state or out of the area that you work in, you have a referral opportunity, right, with that seller, because they're going to buy somewhere else, most likely. So you have a referral opportunity. I'm with Keller Williams. We're the largest real estate company in the world by agent count. Did you know that? Yeah. So that gives me access to the most expert real estate agents in anywhere we have an office. So if you're going to Dallas, if you're going to Bonita Springs, Florida, it doesn't matter. I can find the best agent for you and hook you up. Would it be all right if I do that for you? So find out, where are they going? Are they going to buy a house? Okay, so other questions on here. How much do you own the property? Just read through those in your free time. The questions go on, all very important questions. And then on the last page are some most common expired or canceled seller objections. So I'm going to stay with the same agent. I'm going to sell it myself. These are some ways to respond to some objections for listings. And then the last one is our more common objection handlers. So as a brand new agent, one of the objections that I came across that's not listed on there, since you can read the rest in your time, one that came across was my license number, because our license numbers start with our last name. So, hi Janice. Or not our last name, but the year that we got our license. And I was in competition with some pretty experienced, very experienced. They didn't use the year you got your license with your license number. So I could tell they've had their license for a while. And they said, well, you know, I had another agent in here and they told me to look for that. And, you know, you just got your license a year ago. Why would I list with you? How would you respond to that? Keisha.
Because I'm newly licensed, I have access to so many agents in the office who have way more experience who can support me through the process. And I'm very frank. A new licensee will probably work harder for you than a licensed agent that may have been licensed for years and years. Because we already get set in our ways. So
yeah.
I tell them, I mean, that's helpful.
Right.
I mean, I've been licensed for 12 years now, but when I was, you know, newer, yeah, I was hungry, I was thirsty, so I was ready to go get it. So
Yep. And so
and I have time.
and I have time. Yeah, that's another good one. So so I resources. I have a ton of resources at my office, and we have a ton of people. So if I don't know the answer, I can get it for you.
Absolutely.
I have time. You're going to work with me. What was the other
Just
one?
you.
Huh?
Oh, you're gonna work with you, just you, I don't have to have.
If that's the situation, if that's the situation. And the other thing that I add in there is that, you know, I just went through all the training, and I'm a lifelong learner. Everything is fresh in my mind, okay? I understand the experience from another agent that might have been licensed longer than me, but guess what? I just learned all the rules. I have all the tips and tricks. I've got the best team behind me, the best office of agents behind me, and access to resources and information for you. So don't let somebody trip you up because of that. That shouldn't be an objection. You can overcome that very, very easily. Okay, so the seller consultation. We're going to go through the importance of a listing presentation, set expectations for both you and the client, discover your client's objectives and needs, educate your client on the market and the process. All very, very important. So why is it important to have a listing presentation? Anybody? I don't know if people are chatting with us online. That's okay. So having a listing presentation foremost is important to have, because it helps you make sure that you go through everything that you need to talk about in that presentation. Have you ever met with somebody and you walk away and you go, oh, I forgot to tell them that? The listing presentation teaches you the importance of order and that you're not going to miss anything. So listing presentation is available in Command. So if you go into, I think you go into Connect and then Resources, there's a listing presentation in there that you can use, and you can tweak it, put your picture, put your information, just follow the outline, the presentation, and then get comfortable with it. Use it until you get really comfortable with it. Just look at it every single day. I was actually recording myself. I would go through it and record it myself, and then when I felt confident enough, I would make my husband sit through it. But yeah, so learn a presentation, an order of how you present everything, and having a presentation or a handout is really helpful because it just guides you right through the process. So next, set expectations for both you and the client. Some of the expectations that we might set is, we might have multiple offers by the end of the week. How would you like me to handle that? That's an expectation, really important right now. Do you want me to send them over to you as soon as I get them? Do you want me to tell everybody we're going to open them on Sunday so you can look at them all at the same time? I'll prepare a nice spreadsheet for you. So how would you like to handle offers that come in? That's an expectation. Another expectation, before you even get there for the appointment on the phone, you can start with, if I show up and I understand your needs and we've come up with a marketing plan and we get you listed for the amount of money that you and I both agree is what you're looking for, will you sign the listing agreement with me when I come over? So when we say stuff like that, we shake our head, yeah. I learned this all in bold, by the way. So if you haven't taken bold yet, think about it. It's very, very good. I've taken it twice now, so I know people that have taken it 7, 8, 9, 10 times, exactly. It's that good. But set the expectation. So if you have questions, do you promise me that you'll give me an opportunity to answer them? I don't want to leave here with a question mark in your mind. So can we have an open dialogue, and you'll let me know if there's something that I haven't talked about that's burning in your mind. So set expectations before you get there. I also set an expectation for the timeline. You know, I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. We're going to get started. I'm going to be done by 11:30 or whatever the case may be. Set the expectation for what you want to happen when you get to the listing appointment. You'll be prepared to show me around the house and talk about your improvements. If you sent them a listing packet ahead of time, they have the residential property disclosure. Will you have the residential property disclosure completed for me at that time? That way I could ask any questions that I might have about the home. Okay? Discover your client's needs and objectives. That's paramount, of course. Usually, in my experience anyway, a seller will tell you exactly what they want to list their house for, don't they? They have an idea. They have Zillow, they have Realtor.com, they are watching, so they know. So even though I've done my homework and I have a range, I may not have seen their house yet, but I have a range, a pretty good idea what that home is going to be worth. After they've shown me around, I say, you know, most sellers have a pretty good idea what they want to sell their home for. How much do you want to sell your house for? And most of the time, I mean, maybe once or twice they have said, well, that's why I have you here. So in that case, I go ahead and talk about that. But a lot of times they'll tell you. And so you know what you're dealing with right up front at the beginning. Then you ask that question before you go through the comps with them. Because the comps are going to justify the number that you came up with. And it might be very, very close to what they came up with. And if it's not, you can justify it by showing them the sold properties. So it's not only on paper, but some people are very visual, right? They need to see pictures. You have your computer ready, you have the comps on there, so all you have to do is open them up, show them the pictures. So see this home, it has a finished basement, it has an extra bathroom in the basement, it has a 3-car garage, or whatever the case is. You can show them the differences to help them understand why their home should be priced at that price. Other objectives and needs. Currently, there are some people that may have some health concerns, and so they don't want anybody coming through their house on Monday through Friday, and they'll only show on Saturday and Sunday when they can leave the house, and they only want one person in at a time, and they want everybody to wear masks and booties. You need to know that right up front. You need to know if they have pets in the house, because you might have to let somebody know. You need to know if they have surveillance, if they have video cameras in the house, or Alexa audio. I personally tell everybody that it's there anyway, whether they have it or not, just to keep them on their toes. But you need to let them know. So. Objectives and needs. If we sold your house this weekend, do you have a place to go until we find another house for you to live in? We're running across that a lot right now. So we need to know how we're going to make that happen, that transition happen. Do we need to have an extended closing to give you time to find a home, or do you have a place to go? So find out, again, where they're going, when they need to be out, what are the parameters under which you can list their home. I haven't had anybody say they didn't want pictures or sign in their front yard, but that's another seller need and objection, that you don't have to have pictures. As long as you have a picture of the front of the house, you're fine. That's really all you need to have on there. But most homes have pictures, and I would suggest you do professional photography. Kathy and I were working on some comps the other day. We came across an active listing, and honest to goodness, it looked like somebody was taking a picture of the kitchen table, and that was it, and the corner of a room, and that was it. And the picture in the MLS was like narrow and tall, and you could tell it was dark. It wasn't. Listen, they're paying a lot of money for real estate services, so learn how to take your pictures or hire a professional. There are people out there that will do that pretty reasonably. Yeah, very reasonably. $65 to $100, you can get somebody to take pictures of a 3-bedroom house, for sure. Some photographers can do drone also. So if it's a beautiful property, you might want to have a drone shot of that property. Doesn't necessarily have to be a video. In fact, during these times, I stopped doing videos unless it's a huge house, just because they're selling so fast and we haven't needed it. I haven't needed it, so. Okay, educating your client on the market and the process. What are some of the things that we need to educate our client about this market? What do we need to talk about?
Multiple offers. Like you
Multiple
said.
offers, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. COVID-19, we have a document for COVID-19, right? To protect everybody for a lot of different reasons. In case somebody sick comes in the house. In case the title company is delayed because somebody had a job change or lost their job, or, I mean, there's all kinds of things that have happened that have kind of changed the way that it created a need definitely for an addendum to be signed for COVID-19. So we need to talk about that. What other things do we need to prepare the seller for? How about offers way over the asking price or appraisal value?
Right.
That could happen. If you're in multiple offers, or you accept an offer that you're concerned the house won't even appraise for, what do you do? What do you tell your seller? You tell your seller, it'd probably be helpful to say that if we have multiple offers and people are willing to pay more for the home than it will appraise for, then we're gonna kind of ask them to put their money where their mouth is. It's called an appraisal gap. If there's an appraisal gap, what is the buyer offering to do to help you, the seller? Because that buyer will come back and ask us to lower the price. They will. And we've got other offers sitting here on the table. So how do we want to handle that? Set the expectation up front, help them understand that we have ways to handle. We're gonna be in a situation where we can create multiple offers. Actually, we can induce, or we can encourage multiple offers by how we put our house on the market. So talk to your sellers about multiple offers, that offers may come in higher than the asking price or higher than an appraisal value. And if they're not offering to help us with the appraisal gap, then we got to go back to the negotiation table and figure out what's fair for everybody.
So what is the appraisal gap, that they put the money down?
Yeah,
That they
so,
have-
yeah.
The right funds that they have the money?
Yeah, so there is, so often there'll be an addendum, and I recommend that you use an addendum and not put it on the contract itself. If it's on the contract, you might want to work with the buyer, your co-broker, your buyer's agent, to figure out how you can say that so it's not going to mess up it's not going to confuse the lender or the title company or anybody. So use an addendum and talk to the buyer's agent is going to say, if the house doesn't appraise, then we are willing to bring X number of dollars extra to closing to make up the difference in the gap. Sometimes it's not the whole gap. So let's say that the house is listed at, just for easy numbers, $100,000. House is listed at $100,000, it'll probably appraise at $100,000, but I have 2 offers at $130,000. There's a $30,000 appraisal gap. So you got 2 offers and one says, I will bring an extra $15,000 I'm willing to pay an extra $15,000 above the appraisal value if it doesn't appraise for lending purposes. And the other one doesn't, which is a better offer, right? Yeah, so we wanna look for what's in our seller's best interest every single time. So, we may see, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we may see offers that say, we want to do inspections, but we want to do them for our own knowledge. We're not going to ask for any repairs at all. So that means we're either going to walk away or we're going to accept the house as is, based on the inspections. We'll also see some that want the inspections, and if there are repairs that they want to have, they may come back and ask you to make repairs. How do you feel about that? Oh, we're not going to fix anything. I mean, we put $20,000 into this house already, so they want the house. This is the price. You need to know that up front so that you can negotiate in their best interest. What are some other things that we should talk to our clients about? The market and the process. Title company? Yeah.
Commission.
Commissions, yep. Title company and commissions. Lending process, seller needs to understand, they get an offer that requires lending. You know, what hoops are they gonna have to jump through? You should talk about that. How long is it gonna take? Did you know the buyer gets to choose the title company? Sometimes buyers ask the seller to pay for closing costs. We're not seeing a lot of that right now. In fact, I'm not seeing any of that right now. Because we don't have to. It's just so aggressive. The market is so aggressive right now that we're not seeing that. All right, moving on to the next page, the listing checklist. Do we have any questions so far? I know I'm speeding through this, I apologize. Short period of time here. Any questions so far? Okay. The listing checklist. So the first thing you do when you get a listing, you got to order the tax and legal. I actually order the tax and legal before I go to the appointment, so I have it with me. The most important thing that you as a realtor are going to look at on the tax and legal is who owns the property, and are those people going to be sitting in that meeting with you? So when you set up, Mrs. Browning, will your son, who's also on the title, be joining us? Because everybody on the title has to sign the listing agreement. There's no sense in meeting. Did that happen to you before?
So my buyer, we were supposed to close back in February, and the house was in the seller's name. So, you know, the seller signed all the documents, but then it turned out that the loan was in somebody else's name.
Oh.
And so we've been going back and forth for months, and finally, just yesterday, my buyer signed the release. She's like, I'm done with this.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, it's
then
crazy.
On top of that, the seller had $9,000 outstanding in sewer and $6,000 in water.
Oh, wow.
So she, you know, was, I can't sell, I'm not making enough money, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we brought her more money.
Right.
No, still not enough money. And it was just, it was a mess.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's some crazy things that can happen. I sold a house in Twinsburg, and the buyer and the seller, I represented the buyer in that one, but the buyer and the seller, they listed the house with the real estate agent. And when it came time for the title company to do all their work, we had an accepted offer. We found out that the title company that sold them the house or transferred the title into their name didn't do their work properly. And it turns out that those people didn't own the house at all. And the person that owned it was actually their son, and they just transferred title into his parents' name, but his son was married at the time. It could be very complicated. Order a tax and legal and make sure you do your homework so that everybody's in the room when you get there and sign the listing agreement from the beginning. Okay, so ordering the tax and legal. How do you order a tax and legal?
Check your title.
Title, yep. So we use Ohio Real Title, so I sent an email to orders@ohioreal.com, ohiorealtitle.com, and I say, please send a tax and legal for this address. And I put the owner's name in there too, just to make sure we get the tax and legal information that we need. And then they email it over within 24 hours, so it's really very fast. Pull the property information. Look on the MLS. Has it been listed before? Look and see what you can find out about that house before you go. I print out a copy of the MLS sheet that was used when they bought the house, if it's available. I check it against the county record too. Does the county record say it has 2 bedrooms and they're saying it has 3 bedrooms? Make sure you check all of that. Get your listing presentation ready. Tweak your listing presentation if you're going to print it out to the buyer. Like drive by and take a picture of their house and put it in there. You'll impress them. Put your picture in there, right? Get your listing presentation ready for that. Do your comps. Make sure you've done some people use a quick CMA that the MLS has and some use a full. I use them both. I just use them both because I don't know. I usually don't have 2 appointments for the listing appointment. I usually just have 1. So I take them both with me. And we're getting to know our seller. We're getting to know how do they like to communicate. Do they want to get into the details or they just want to see the bottom line? So I show them how we come up with the comps. So make sure you got your comps ready, have your CMA available. Create your .loop file. That's where you're printing all of your listing documents out of the .loop file with their name and their address, the parcel number, all the information that you have thus far, and the information you don't have, you just leave that blank and you can fill it out when you're sitting there with the client.
Do you guys do a class on CMAs?
We do, yeah. I don't know when it's scheduled though. Yeah, but yeah, it's part of Ignite. And also, MLS does it, and if there's a class that you want and you haven't seen or it's not on the schedule, just let Gara know, I think, right?
Yeah.
And you can let our education committee know and we can get it going, or hook you up with somebody in the office that would be happy to sit down and
Okay.
walk you through it. Definitely. So there's all kinds of options for that.
Just, I hear like everyone does it differently. I'm like, oh, okay, which one? If you do
Yeah.
it this way, it makes sense. If you do it this way, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So which one do you go?
Exactly. Okay, so you have a signed listing agreement. You have to get the home details from the seller. You're marking it all down because you got to come back and put it into the MLS. You have to have your photos. You have to have your disclosure signed. I put an agency disclosure already in there in the loop. So even if it's coming soon, if you're using coming soon on your listing, I highly recommend have your photos ready, have your residential property disclosure ready, any information that you can collect. If it's got a well and septic, you can yourself call the county and they'll send you the well report and the septic report. You can include that so that people have all the information they need right up front. Put your residential property disclosure, your lead-based paint disclosure, your COVID-19 disclosure, any other information, any home improvements that you have, make sure you put that in there, all that information. And then at the very bottom of your MLS listing where it says broker comments and remarks, it's really important that you put that the room sizes and the taxes are not guaranteed. And that's important because somebody might come back to you and say, that living room is not 12 by 14, it's 11 by 15. You don't want to give anybody reason to be disgruntled or feel like they've been cheated in any way. So make sure you put at the bottom, room sizes and taxes are not guaranteed. Any other instructions for the broker about that the seller has told you, like, for example, going to go live on Thursday and we're having an open house on Saturday, but we're not opening offers until Sunday night. I made the mistake of not putting that in there one time. I got a crazy number of offers and my seller said, whoa, I want to wait. I'd already presented a couple offers on the first night. And I had agents that were so ticked off at me about that. I mean, it was a rookie move on my part, but use that broker remark to share any information that you can to help people be successful and know that they're entering into a fair playing ground. Make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. So the next step after you get everything into the MLS is you've got to get your sign in the yard, have your marketing ready to go, the lockbox on the door, your photos are done. For marketing, don't forget to use your social media. Once it's in coming soon status, you can start posting pictures and information. One thing that you can't do is put your open house in the description of the house. You can only advertise in the MLS an open house on the day that it goes active, that morning. So I'm a silly girl, and I actually wake up at like midnight. I set my alarm and I put it in active so it hits Zillow within a couple of hours, and when people wake up, it's up and ready to go, and they know about the open house the minute we go active. So you have to wait, unfortunately, and that actually Katie Overton has suggested to the MLS that they make it so that you can schedule the open house so that when you enter your information and you can just put it in, that automatically comes up your open house when it goes active. That makes sense to me. Okay, next we have, we've already talked about that. Open houses and scheduling, showing time schedule. Oh, you do have to call showing time and let them know. You can talk to showing time about your showing instructions in the coming soon period. In fact, buyers can schedule showings for your place before it's active on the market. So as soon as you go live, make sure showing time has the instructions, because you can schedule, and oftentimes before it's even hits the market, you might have an entire day full. Entire day. Already full with showings. So they're going to want to know the instructions that they're supposed to give to the other agents. They're going to want to know if you want to block out any times. Like if the seller says no showings after 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, got kids in the house, it's not convenient, whatever that is, tell showing time they'll block it off and they won't let people book it or try and book it.
Karen, I have a question.
Yeah.
Nicole wants to know, why do you do both a full and quick CMA presentation?
Yeah, so when I go on the listing appointment, Nicole, that's a great question. Why do I do the full CMA and the quick CMA? I don't know yet, I haven't with my seller, I don't know how they like to communicate. I don't know if they want to get into the details or not. The full CMA looks at the houses, each one that you're using as a comparative. And it'll tell you exactly how many bedrooms for each one compared to the subject property. It'll give you all the details. Does it have a fireplace? How many fireplaces? Does it have a paved driveway? Is it well and septic? It'll have all that information spelled out for the buyer in columns. Okay, the quick CMA is going to show you what was the original price that was listed at when it went on the market, what was the listing price when it sold, and what did it sell for, how many days on market, what was the average cost per square foot. That quick CMA tells me a lot of information, but I'm not sure that it tells the seller a lot of information about the house. The other one's very detailed. So depending on whether the seller's like, I can tell they're not even going to care about looking at that, then at least I've got both of them there. If you've already pulled up the comps in there, it's easy. You just click one button or you click the other. You click them both. It's easy to do and print them out for them. Okay? Does that answer your question, Nicole? Okay. All right. How are we tracking our offers? So if we get multiple offers, we create a spreadsheet. So we put a spreadsheet in the order that the offer was received. I just use Excel. I don't have anything fancy. So in the order that they were received, and I put down the name, where it came from, who the agent is. I put down the day that I received it. I put in the amount. I put in other information like, did they use an escalation clause? Does everybody know what that is? Escalation clause, okay. Did they use an escalation clause? What are the terms of the escalation clause? Is there an appraisal gap amount that they're willing to come up to if needed? I put all that together so it's simple for the seller to look at and compare side by side. I even asked my sellers ahead of time, would it be okay if I didn't put names and just presented the offers? So rather than giving them the offer itself at first, I say if I'm going to do the homework for you and pull out all the stuff that's important in there and present that to or do you want to see and read every offer? And you have to ask them that because you're required to give them the offer. So, but I like to put it out so they can see it straight up. Do they want an inspection? What inspections do they want? Are they going to ask for repairs? You know, are they asking for a radon test for the basement? I mean, if Mrs. Seller, if you have a basement, and if I was representing the buyer, I would recommend that they have a radon test. So they may be asking for that. That takes a little bit longer to have done because they've got to leave it in the house for 2 days. And if there's radon in the basement, it could cost you somewhere between $800 and $1,200 to repair. Typically, that's on the seller. Make sure they understand all that before you give them that spreadsheet of your offers. And then once we look at the offers that your seller might say, or you might tell your seller, this offer has a great number, and this offer has a great number, but the higher one that you want they want to have inspections, but they're not saying that they're not going to ask you for repairs. Would you like me to give them a call and talk to them about that and see where they're coming from? Have they prepared their buyer for, it's not a brand new home. There's going to be a bunch of little stuff because the seller really doesn't want to make repairs. They want to sell the house as is. Are they going to be cool with that? You want to find out what you're dealing with. What can you expect? So you can negotiate offers based on what the seller is looking for. Once you've decided on which offer that you want to accept, it is my personal practice to have the seller sign every offer, the agency disclosure for every offer, evidencing that you presented their offer. It's important. If there is a letter from the buyer, if the buyer wrote a letter to the seller, I do present those to the seller. So as real estate agents, we're advised not to do that. We're supposed to advise our buyers, the buyers, not to do that because it could be a fair housing violation. And I do, and I tell them, they say, can I write a letter? And I say, well, that's completely up to you. And if that's your instruction, I will present it. Right? I'll present it, but I'm going to send you an email that advises you not to do that. Just be aware of that. And they're cool. Yes.
I just had one buyer that was.
Can you come up here?
Sure.
They can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I gotta go up on the camera too.
Yeah. Oh, you look beautiful. Come on.
No, TV makes me look fat. So
No,
I
you
just
don't.
had one buyer over the weekend. They insisted on doing a letter. So I kind of just gave them guidelines like, okay, if you want to do a letter, talk about the house. Maybe talk about what you like about the house. Maybe the location. Do not go down familiar status path. Do not go down religion path. All of that, all the protected classes. And that's it.
Yes.
So she actually got it.
Good. Outstanding. So you gave them some instructions so they won't violate fair
Right.
housing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then, so I'll come back, sorry. So with my sellers, I'm like you, I do give it to them. But I'm very, very, like before you even get into the listing, like the importance of don't get sucked into by these letters. We don't want to go down that path of violation. So I'm going to present them, But don't make that, oh, that's a criteria, this is why I accept, the only reason why I accept it because they have a family with kids and all of that. Don't get sucked into that, because it could come back to bite all of us later.
True,
So,
absolutely.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Amanda said, put that in the broker's remarks, like, do not send love letters in the broker's remarks, so
Yeah.
that people are gonna do it anyway, but just to cover you as an agent.
Right. Janice, if you didn't hear, Janice said she writes in the broker's remarks down there, do not send love letters. And she said they still do sometimes, but at least you put it there, it covers yourself. I like that idea a lot. That's great, both of those ideas.
Nicole has a question. She says, do you explain to the buyer why they advise not to write?
Yep.
I sure do, oh yeah. Yeah, I talked to them about fair housing, but it is my experience also that other agents don't. I mean, I've had other agents show up with buyers and they're talking about the school district and, I mean, they're doing all kinds of things they shouldn't be doing. So don't expect that they prepared their buyer that way. So you should definitely explain that to your buyer, why you shouldn't do a love letter. Because if somebody didn't get the house because they didn't write a letter and maybe they had a handicap or, I mean, maybe they had a really, really compelling reason to the seller that they didn't have an opportunity to present, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. I had a friend in Georgia, she's an agent. She did a whole video of the family, like talking about why they want this house. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't do that. She was like, I can't. I was like, no, like that's a video of the family, of their race, of everything.
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
you
yeah.
She's like, I never thought about that. I'm like, take it down now. Do not send it to your seller, to the
Wow.
agent.
So they sent a video, not a written letter. Wow, that's a big violation.
Yeah, that's a big violation.
Big violation right there, yeah. Okay, oh my gosh. Well, I mean, people are willing to do anything.
Anything in
I had
the
somebody
market.
say, I'm gonna go knock on the door and talk to the seller myself, you know, so they can meet me. I'm like, don't do it. You might lose it altogether, if not worse.
Yeah, one thing that worked for my seller, I don't know if this was like the tipping point, but what we did was a offer summary with a quick paragraph at the beginning, like, they love the house, they've been looking for the perfect house, just very generic,
Mhm.
and then did a quick summary of, we're offering this, this is the breakdown of the
Yeah.
prices,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
anything to kind of, they were using Quicken loans, and so we kind of did a little snippet, like, the mortgage officer will be good, like, we'll get this done and whatnot. And I don't know if that worked, but they got the house, so.
It helped. So, and communication is a big thing, and that reminded me to talk a little bit about that. Gosh, I can't believe the number of people that submit offers on listings that I've had that I never heard a word from. Their offer shows up in my email, how many emails do we get a day? It could have been completely overlooked.
Right.
Call every single agent. Call them and find out, just verify, this is what we have. Tell me about your buyer. I mean, you represent the seller's best interest, so you need to know. You need to explain that offer to them because they're not there to present themselves. So reach out. And after you've made a decision, you call every single one of them and you let them know that we've made a decision because their buyers are waiting. They're emotional. It is such an emotional process, right, for them. So let them know. Make sure you have your seller sign those agency disclosures that they submitted with their offer so they know that you've presented it and you keep those on file in your loop, all of them. Save your spreadsheet. Put that in the loop too. Okay? Kathy, it looks like you have a question. You good? Okay. All right. So so you don't change anything in the MLS until you have a signed agreement by both parties, because it's not a deal until everything is signed and initialed on the contract. Remember, the date of that contract is the last required signature or initial on that contract. That's the date of the contract. So you do not change anything in MLS until that happens. Now, what you can do, and I'm seeing quite often, is if you're negotiating a contract and your seller says, I want to stop showing, you can call showing time and say, we're negotiating a contract, please stop all showings. So when you go on to book it, it may still say active, but there's no, everything's black and showing time. That means they're probably negotiating a deal right now. So that's something that you can do, but don't change anything in the MLS until you have a binding agreement, which means everything has been, any change that happened in that contract has to be initialed by both parties. That's the contract date. Okay. You know the difference between contingent and pending? Yeah? Nick? You got that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this guy can go on.
Yep, I know. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so now the purchase process timeline we'll go through pretty quickly. Earnest money check, inspections, removal of contingencies, the appraisal then happens, the lending documents are all going through their approval with underwriting, and then the lender gives the title company clear to close, and then you are notified. 3 days before the closing, you'll have, the buyer's gonna wanna have a walkthrough. So I wanna go back to this earnest money check. When I call and talk to every agent that submitted an offer, I let them know, I'm just saying, I'm gonna be straight up with you. We have multiple offers, and it was a really tough decision. So your contract says that within 3 days, we're gonna have an earnest money check deposited. And I want you to know that if that earnest money check isn't deposited, we're gonna be hounding you for it, because after 3 days, my seller could come back and say, they're out of contract, let's move on to the next buyer. So are you gonna be able to move your buyer along with what you've offered us in this contract? I always do that. And I say it in a very, very nice way. I'm looking out for your buyer's interest too, because we have a deal now. But are you sure you can move your buyer along these terms? Because it's gonna be super important, and I don't, I want everybody to know ahead of time, this is our expectation. This is what we've agreed to. Okay, the inspections, typically pay attention to that. There's language in other contracts, by the way. They hide in there language that says that they're not gonna send the earnest money until after the inspections are done. Make sure you read that offer that comes in, because if that's in there, I have literally gone in and I tell them ahead of time, I'm crossing that out, and I'm gonna have my seller initial it. Make sure you initial it and it's okay with your buyer. But if they're serious about this house, earnest money is gonna be due before that, or within the time period specified on that first page. The ROC, removal of contingency, those are other timelines that have to be followed. Once the inspections have to happen within a certain period of time. I've got 2 minutes. They have to happen within a certain period of time, and we have to have a response within a certain period of time. Then the seller has to respond within a certain period of time. So all those timelines, get them on your calendar so that you don't miss them, and make sure your buyer, the one you decide to work with for your seller, in your seller's best interest, understands that you're going to hold their feet to the fire on those deadlines. Okay. The appraisal, I've had appraisers that don't want anybody there when they come out. Some don't care. My personal practices, I leave some comps on the table. I leave the listing agreement on the table. I leave the home fact sheet on the table, and typically the appraiser will take them with them. So they're not supposed to talk to you about that stuff. But you can leave it on the table. It's there anyway for any buyers that come through the house, right? Okay. Okay, so communication throughout the process. Stay in touch with your client through every step of the process. Over-explain everything. Say it 3 times if you have to, or 5 times if you have to. Over-explain everything. Make sure you're asking for questions and understanding. Explain the next steps so they know what's going to happen next. There's a quiet period after you, for a seller especially, after you accept an offer. It gets quiet and they're like, what's happening? What's happening? Tell them that the title company is going to send somebody out to survey the property. They don't call and tell you when they're coming. You just see somebody walking around in the backyard. So let them know that's going to happen. Unfortunately, they don't tell us as agents either. So be aware. You may see somebody walking around in the yard. Over-explain everything. And then keep in touch with the title company and the lender. So if they're not keeping up with the timeline, that could mess you up too, or your buyer or seller. So you've got to introduce yourself to the lender. Introduce yourself to the title company. If somebody's handling your transaction coordination, make sure that they know who they should be communicating with, okay? We get clear to close. That means that underwriting is done. The title company is ready to finish their part of closing. And then we advise on the utility transfer. The seller, you ask the seller to provide who provides gas and electric, and work is checking the sump or the septic system, all that, provide that information to the buyer, advise them that they have to pick the closing date or whatever the possession date is to transfer, not shut off, but transfer the utilities. Okay, so we're gonna send all that out. And then there could be a delay, so prepare your seller for that. Sometimes there are delays. If something doesn't get done, it does happen, so be prepared for that. And then give the keys to your happy buyers. So then you're going to make arrangements once it closes and funds have transferred to transfer keys over. Trying to think if there's anything else in there that we didn't go over. I think we pretty much covered it. Oh, yeah, giving your keys in possession. When you're doing a listing, when you're talking to the seller about what their needs are, they might need a few days to move out after the title transfers. That's what I would recommend that they ask for, because I don't want to see them have a moving truck show up on the day that they're supposed to transfer and it didn't transfer on time. Then, I mean, that's happened to me too. That's a pain in the bum. So make sure you understand and negotiate that for your seller. Negotiate when you need to get that back, or when you can transfer. Okay, so some agents use closing gifts. Use a social media post that says closed, that you close that property. You might want to send postcards out in the neighborhood. You might want to set up on a sold smart plan and command so that you're staying in touch with that with that seller and the neighbors. Ask for a review and ask for a referral. Ask for a referral like 5 times through the process. When you get the offer accepted, ask for a referral, right? When the inspections are all worked out, ask for a referral. These are happy times in the seller's life. We're done with that, we're done with that, we're done with that. Every single time they're excited about something, ask them for a referral. Who do you know that might like to buy a home or sell a home or invest in real estate? I'm looking for listings right now. Let them know. Okay, and then do you have any other questions? Anybody? Nicole, any questions? Anybody else? Okay, well, I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to stick around. I'd love to hear your ahas, but our time is already up. It's 11:03, so thanks for being here today. I hope I was helpful. Please reach out to me at any time. My phone number is 440-773-3181. You can call me, and I'm happy to help, or anyone on the ALC, the Agent Leadership Council here at Keller Williams, would be willing to help you. And use that broker line. Use that broker line. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job, Karen.
Thank you.